Hey there. Before we dive into it, I want to know where and when are you watching this? Drop your answers in the comments below and join our community. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a spine-tingling moment. Now, get comfy, turn off the lights. Let's begin. I'll never forget that night on the back roads of Pennsylvania. A narrow stretch of cracked asphalt swallowed by trees. The kind of road that makes you question if you've already passed the same turn a dozen times without realizing it. My headlights cut a thin line through the dark, but out there, light didn't travel far. The forest just seemed to absorb it. The sky was moonless that night, a black sheet pressing down on the world. No stars, no distant glow from towns. Just an endless curtain of dark, thick enough that it almost felt alive. The steady hum of my rig filled the cab, blending with the faint rattle of loose chains in the back. I'd been driving since sundown, 6, maybe 7 hours straight, running on caffeine, muscle memory, and the dull ache behind my eyes that always came around the 5th cup of truck stop coffee. Long nights never bothered me. I'd spent years behind the wheel, moving freight from one corner of the country to another. I liked the solitude, the rhythm of the road. But that night something felt different. The forest on either side of me seemed too close, pressing in, branches bending toward the road like long arms. Every few seconds a shadow would twitch at the edge of my lights, and I'd catch myself tightening my grip on the steering wheel. I kept telling myself it was just the trees moving with the wind, but the air was dead still. I remember coming around a wide bend, slow curve, maybe 50 miles an hour, when I saw movement up ahead. At first, it was just a shape in the dark. My headlights brushed across it, and I saw a man walking along the shoulder of the highway. A man. Out there, in the middle of nowhere. He had a suitcase dragging beside him, the handle clutched in one hand. He moved slow, steady, like each step cost him effort. For a second, I thought maybe his car had broken down. It wasn't unusual to see stranded travelers at night, though rarely this far out. Still, something about him made my stomach tighten. As I got closer, I noticed the details. His clothes didn't fit the time or place. He wore a long overcoat, dark and heavy-looking, even though it was early autumn. His shoes were worn dress shoes, the kind that click against concrete, not the kind meant for walking miles of gravel shoulder. A hat, too. One of those old fedoras you'd see in black and white photos. I slowed down, easing off the gas. My lights flooded over him, but he didn't react, didn't turn, didn't raise a hand for help. He just kept walking, eyes locked on the pavement in front of him, as if counting every crack in the road. I gave a short honk, a friendly one. Nothing. I leaned on it a little longer this time, expecting at least a flinch, a glance over the shoulder. But he didn't even twitch, just kept walking. A chill crept up the back of my neck. Something about that blank indifference hit me harder than fear. It was like I didn't exist to him at all. I rolled down the window halfway, about to call out, but the words caught in my throat. The sound of the truck engine filled the space between us, and for a few seconds, it felt like the entire world had narrowed down to the rhythmic thud of his suitcase brushing the ground with each dragging step. I drove past him slowly. My eyes flicked to the side mirror, and I saw him fade into the distance, still walking, same pace, same direction. His head never moved. He never looked up. Eventually, he disappeared from sight, swallowed whole by the darkness behind me. That's when I realized I'd been holding my breath. I let out a long exhale and told myself it was nothing, just some drifter, maybe deaf or deep in thought. But the feeling lingered, that strange, wrong stillness in him. For the next 20 miles, I couldn't shake the unease. My hands kept finding the steering wheel tighter than they should have been, my eyes darting to the mirrors every few minutes. Each time I checked, I half expected to see that figure again, walking toward me through the black. When I finally reached a rest stop, I pulled over and sat there in the idling cab for a while. The silence was thick, the kind that fills your ears and makes every small sound feel too loud. I told myself again it was just a man, just a late-night traveler. But the longer I sat there, the less I believed it. Something about him didn't belong to the world I knew, and so I kept it to myself. For 2 months, I didn't mention it, not to dispatch, not to the other drivers I knew, not even to my wife. I tried to file it away as fatigue, a trick of my tired brain, but it stuck with me, like a song you can't get out of your head, playing over and over. I'd wake up at night in my sleeper cab, half convinced I heard soft footsteps outside, the crunch of gravel, the drag of something heavy being pulled. I'd sit up, heart pounding, listening, and then nothing, just silence again, the kind that feels like it's watching you. Weeks passed. Routes changed. I tried to forget. It wasn't until one foggy morning near Weatherly, Pennsylvania, that I finally spoke about it. I was sitting at a truck stop diner, the kind with peeling paint and the smell of burnt coffee baked into the walls. An old radio played quietly in the corner. I was stirring my cup when another driver, older guy, grizzled beard, deep lines in his face, sat down across from me. He started talking about haunted routes, ghost lights, and strange things truckers see on long drives. I tried to ignore it, but the words, walking the road at night, made my stomach twist. Before I could stop myself, I said, I saw someone once. A man walking the highway, suitcase in hand. The old driver froze mid-chew. He looked up slowly, eyes narrowing. You saw him, he said, voice low. Who? I asked. The walker? He leaned back, studying me for a long moment. They say he's been around for decades. Always on that same stretch of road. Always alone. Some say he froze to death during the blizzard of '62. Others think he's still trying to make it home. I just sat there, staring at my coffee, my reflection warped in the dark surface. Before he left, the old man put a few bills on the counter, then looked back at me. If you ever see him again, he said, don't stop. Just keep driving. I didn't answer, didn't need to. The look in his eyes told me he wasn't joking. That night, back on the road, I couldn't get his words out of my head. The walker. I want to tell you a story my father shared with me only once in his entire lifetime. It's about an incident that happened when he was a young truck driver in East Africa, in the late 80 seconds before hell broke out in Rwanda. He never wished to speak about it. For years, he would change the topic whenever I brought it up. And even when he did finally tell me the entire story, I could tell that a piece of him still lingered there, in the cage. My father used to have to drive far distances across Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda in order to make delivery runs for a trucking firm. He used to say Rwanda was one of the most beautiful places he'd ever traveled to: green rolling hills, serene villages, nice people. But things changed over time. He started noticing more soldiers on the roads, checkpoints, and people were afraid even when they weren't saying a word. He did not know much about the tension between the Hutus and the Tutsis at the time. It was just another delivery to him, another route to take. One night, he was driving to Kigali in a half-full truck, passing through small, rural villages under a starless night sky. The air clung heavy, thick. He said even the crickets had stopped chirping. That's when he saw the flashing lights in front of him, a roadblock. He slowed down, rolled down the window, and reached for his travel papers. Before he could even utter a word, a number of soldiers had surrounded the truck. They pointed their guns at him and swore in Kinyarwanda, which he did not understand. He attempted to explain, in Swahili, that he was just a Kenyan driver. But they paid no attention to him. A man flung open the door and dragged him out. They kept saying one word over and over again, Tutsi. He did not even know what it was at first. Then he realized they believed he was one of them. They took his ID, but it seemed to make no difference. He was herded towards a group of prisoners huddled behind a chain-link fence. The cage was small, maybe 10 feet wide, and packed with terrified men. There were some who were crying quietly. There were others who were praying. There was the smell of terror and sweat in the air. My dad explained to me the soldiers arrived every couple of hours, always nighttime, open the gate, shout out some names, and take people away. No one ever returned. At first, he thought they were being resettled somewhere else. But the cries of the black fields on the other side of the trees were a warning to him that this was not true. He was in shock on the first night. The second night, he could not sleep. The third night, he just waited numb, listening to the footsteps, the yelling, and the silence that followed always. At this point, his voice had been removed from trying to get himself understood. He tried to speak Swahili, English, even bits of French he had learned in school. Nobody listened. He was a stranger in a country where one could be murdered for being mistaken for the wrong sort of person. He told the worst of it wasn't the fear of death, it was seeing all the people around him lose hope. You could tell by looking at their eyes. That calm resignation. That creeping loss of hope. On the fourth day, the air was chilly. A soldier walked by, opening the gate, and tossed in a few water bottles. That's when my dad noticed this guy sitting near the corner of the cage, older, thin, but with a serene face. The man looked at him for a second, then mumbled something quietly. In Swahili. My dad tensed up. He hadn't heard that language in days. The man asked where he was from, and my father quickly told him Kenya. A truck driver, just passing through. Not Rwandan. He didn't know what was happening. He showed him his ID, trembling. The man nodded slowly, then stood up and moved forward and said he would try to help. He didn't say how. He just got up and went outside to speak to the soldiers across the fence. For the whole hour, my father stood waiting, his heart pounding, for the man to be beaten or shot. But the guards walked up to the cage, opened the door, and motioned to my father to exit. He was hesitant at first. He assumed it was a trick. But the guard stuck his ID in his chest and said one word in Swahili, "Go." They returned his truck keys. That's all. No reply, no queries. He climbed into his truck, shaking hands with the last of the passengers, and started the motor. The roar of it almost made him cry. He had no idea which way to go. He just kept on driving until he saw the signs for the border of Uganda. He drove through the night, wide-eyed, headlights cutting through the fog. Every bump in the road made him start. Every shadow appeared to come to life. When he did manage to get over the border, he steered into the small roadside diner just beyond and just sat there. He said he didn't even remember turning off the engine. He just sat in the car, staring out the window until dawn. He said not a word about it for 2 months. Not to his colleagues, not to his wife, not to his own brother. He tried to lay it to rest. But if he heard a radio program about Rwanda, he'd shut up. And if you asked him what happened that week, he'd say, "Some roads you never drive again." Years afterward, when he finally told me this tale, he said he still recalls the man who had helped him, the Swahili-speaking man. He never knew his name. He never saw him again. But he blamed his existence on this stranger. And sometimes, during nights when my father traveled alone, he told me that he could still sense that same quiet, that same stifling, unnatural silence he had experienced at the checkpoint. as if the specters of that cage still lurked somewhere out on the road waiting for him to leave. He survived because one man took a risk to help a stranger. But to this day, my father says he doesn't know why they let him go. Was it mercy or a mistake? If you were in his place, would you have turned back to find that man? Or would you just keep driving and never look back? That night still gives me chills whenever I think about it. I was hauling a valuable tractor part across North Dakota, cutting through the endless plains on my way to Montana. The landscape out there is a double-edged sword, beautiful and wide open during the day. But once the sun goes down, that same openness turns eerie. You feel like the last person left on Earth. By around 2 in the morning, I'd been driving for hours on those long, straight roads that never seemed to end. The hum of the engine, the rhythm of the tires against the asphalt, it all started to blur together. Highway hypnosis crept in quietly. My mind began to drift, and I was on autopilot, just guiding the wheel while my thoughts floated somewhere else. Then, out of nowhere, something ahead snapped me back to full awareness. About half a mile in front of me, I saw a long, dark shape stretched across my lane. My first thought was that it was debris, maybe a blown tire or a chunk of something that fell off a truck. But as I got closer, my stomach dropped. It wasn't debris. It was 2 people lying head to toe across the entire lane. My instincts took over. I swerved hard into the opposite lane and hit the brakes. The truck screeched, and I came within a few feet of them before stopping completely. My heart was pounding like a hammer in my chest. I sat there, gripping the wheel, trying to process what I was seeing. The 2 figures didn't move, not a twitch, just lying there. At first, I thought maybe they were hurt, passed out, or in trouble. But something about it didn't sit right. Who the hell lies down in the middle of a highway at 2 in the morning? I was just about to throw the truck in reverse and check on them when a story I'd once heard from an old-timer came back to me. He'd warned me about a kind of road ambush that sometimes happened out here in the middle of nowhere. The setup was simple. Someone would lie in the road pretending to need help, and when a driver stopped, others would rush out from the dark, beat them, rob them, sometimes even take the truck. That memory froze me. Suddenly, the whole scene made sense in a way I didn't want it to. My gut screamed at me not to get out. I trusted it. Instead of reversing, I shifted back into gear and started moving forward slowly, keeping my eyes locked on them the whole time. As soon as they realized I wasn't stopping, both of them got up, just stood right up like nothing was wrong, and started walking toward the side of the road. That confirmed it for me. I didn't stick around to see what they'd do next. Once I had a safe distance, I grabbed my phone and called the police. I gave them my exact location, the time, and described what I'd seen. I hoped they'd send someone, but I also knew how it worked out there. It could take hours before anyone showed up, and by then, those 2 would probably be long gone. The rest of that drive to Montana felt different. I couldn't shake the thought of what could have happened if I'd stopped. Maybe I'd be the one lying on that cold asphalt. Maybe my truck would have vanished into the night. Ever since that night, I've been a lot more cautious during my late runs. I trust my instincts more than ever. Out on those empty highways, anything can happen, and sometimes it's not the road itself that's dangerous. I've always believed certain places absorb energy. Not just haunted castles or graveyards, but places where a lot of people pass through. Airports, train stations, hotels, especially hotel rooms. I used to work night security at one of the poshest hotels in Dublin City. 5 stars, marble floors, high-end clientele, that kind of place. You'd think nothing dark could touch it, but let me tell you, money doesn't stop the weird shit from creeping in. It started around 2:17 a.m. I remember because I was mid-yawn, flipping through the camera feeds, when the front desk patched a call through to security. A man's voice, panicked, breathless. "My wife's in the bath. I think she's not breathing." I snapped upright. Me and this other guard, Mark, rushed to room 237 on the 8th floor. The hallway was dead quiet, the kind of quiet that feels wrong, like the building itself is holding its breath. We pushed in. The guy was pacing around, soaked from the waist down. The bathroom door was wide open. I'll never unsee that moment. She was in the tub, completely still. Water up to her shoulders. Eyes open, but not seeing. We dragged her out, tried CPR. I was counting compressions under my breath while Mark gave breaths. Her skin was cold, like, not just chilly, cold like touching stone. I knew it was too late, but we had to try. Police arrived within minutes. The moment they stepped in, they told us to stop. One of the officers pulled me aside and said quietly, "She's been gone a while. A couple hours, at least." The husband told them they'd argued earlier. He stormed out, came back, saw her in the bath, assumed she was just soaking, and went to bed. Said he only got suspicious when she didn't join him. No obvious signs of violence, no water overflow, no witnesses. They couldn't charge him. But between us, staff, cops, even the paramedics, we all felt it. That gut pull, that something's off feeling. He checked out the next morning. Quiet, calm, not a single tear. Room 237 was locked off for 3 weeks. Housekeeping deep cleaned every inch. Management said accidents happen. Life moves on. They reopened the room like nothing happened. No priest, no sage, nothing. Just fresh linens and a new bar of soap. The first person to stay in that room after the death was this woman named Liz. She was a regular, corporate client, stayed at least once a month. She always asked for a high-floor room. She got 237 without knowing a damn thing. Next morning, 6:50 a.m., she's at the front desk with her suitcase, and this look like she'd seen hell. I was walking past when she said, loud enough for guests to hear, "That room is haunted." I didn't sleep a second. Something's wrong with it. She said she kept hearing dripping water all night, not just from the bathroom, like it was coming from the walls. At 3 a.m., the taps in the bathtub turned on by themselves, full blast. She walked in and turned them off, soaked her slippers. Then, 5 minutes later, the shower started. She swore she hadn't touched anything. She said she kept smelling something, floral, like old roses but rotten, like death wearing perfume. We offered her another room. She refused, said she was checking out for good, never came back. After that, room 237 got a reputation internally. Guests kept requesting room changes after one night. Some didn't even last that long. There was this German businessman who called at 1:03 a.m., whispering like he didn't want someone to hear, "I think someone is in my bathroom." I asked if he saw anything. "No," he said, "but someone is coughing." A wet cough, I went up. Bathroom was empty, but the floor was damp. Towels crumpled in the corner. The toilet had been used. Seat up, water moving like it had just flushed. The guy hadn't gone in all night. He checked out the next morning without breakfast. A honeymoon couple stayed there once. The woman came down at 4:12 a.m. in her pajamas, crying. She said she saw a pale woman standing at the foot of the bed. Dripping wet, not moving, just staring. Her husband didn't see anything, but he confirmed the room temperature dropped 10 degrees in minutes. I checked the thermostat. It was set to 23 degrees Celsius. The room was at 14. No windows were open. I started dreading that room. Even walking past it gave me this tightness in my chest, like I was being watched. I'd make rounds and literally speed walk past it. Once, I was reviewing CCTV around 2:20 a.m., same time the original call had come in, and I saw something weird. The hallway camera outside 237 glitched. Just for a second. But when I paused the footage and zoomed in, there was a shadow. Not a person, a shape. Just outside the door. Like someone was standing there, pressed against it. I replayed it 100 times. Mark saw it too. "It's probably compression error," he said. But his voice shook when he said it. Management refused to shut the room. They said we'd get sued if we told guests. Unless you see something tangible, it's superstition. So we kept assigning the room. But we started calling it the bathtub room behind closed doors. The cleaners hated it. They'd go in pairs. Even when nothing moved, the mirror always fogged up on its own. Once, one of the maids, Rosa, swore she saw the words, "Don't leave me," written in the steam. But when she called her coworker over, it vanished. Guests who stayed more than one night always complained of water sounds, dripping, running, gurgling, sometimes crying. One guy swore his sheets were damp every morning, like someone had gotten in the bed wet. Then came the worst night. 3:08 a.m. We get a call from room 237. The guest was an old man, solo traveler. Very logical, very composed. He said, "Someone knocked on my bathroom door from the inside." Not once. 3 times I sprinted up. When I opened the door, the room was empty, but the lights in the bathroom were flickering. Not just flickering, buzzing. And the bathtub faucet was trickling, just enough to hear. That's when I noticed it. There was water. Not just in the tub, it was on the floor, in a straight line, like footprints, leading from the bath to the bed. But no one had walked. No one had opened the door. I put in my resignation a week later. Mark lasted a month more. He said he heard a woman humming in the elevator when he was alone. Hummed the same tune for 3 floors. When the doors opened, no one was there. Room 237 is still open as far as I know. They just keep painting over the mold and turning the mattress. But something lives there now. Or maybe something never left. Not every hotel room starts off haunted. Some of them become haunted. And I was there when it happened. I don't know why I'm writing this. I'm not a forum guy, but I'm alone out here and I have to tell someone, anyone, just to get it out of my own head. So if I do go crazy, at least there's a record of it. I torched my life about a month ago. Job, apartment, relationship, the whole thing. I'm an architect, or I was. Had a full-blown burnout, the kind that leaves you feeling hollowed out, you know? I just needed quiet, needed to start over. I found this listing online, a house going for practically nothing. The catch was its location, the middle of nowhere, in a derelict 60s housing development that went bust. The town's name is Ethelberg. Sounded perfect. A place where the world couldn't find me. When I got here, it was even deader than I'd imagined. A ghost town of asphalt and weeds. Perfectly laid out streets that lead nowhere. Rusted streetlights standing like skeletal sentinels. All the houses are identical. These sad little copy-pasted boxes, all of them empty and rotting. Except mine. Mine was clean. Too clean, like someone had been here a week ago and scrubbed the place down. The first few days were bliss. The silence. I'd forgotten what real silence was. Not city quiet, which is just a low hum. This was a deep, heavy quiet that felt like it was pressing on my eardrums. I started unpacking, slowly, starting to feel human again. That's when the little things started. The first thing, it was a picture frame. An old photo of my parents. I'd put it on the mantelpiece over the brick fireplace. One evening, I'm walking to the kitchen to get a drink. I stop. I pick up the frame, and I move it. Maybe 4 inches to the left. The thing is, I don't remember deciding to do it. My hand just did it. Like an autopilot thing, you know? Like when you're driving and you suddenly realize you don't remember the last 5 miles. But after I did it, after the frame was in its new spot, I felt this wave of calm, relief, like an itch I didn't know I had was finally scratched. I figured, okay, whatever. Stress, nerves. It's a new place. I'm just settling in. A few nights later, I woke up. Not because of a noise, I just woke up, eyes wide open in the pitch black. I wasn't in my bed, I was standing in the kitchen. The linoleum was ice cold under my feet. It took me a second to figure out where I was. I hadn't turned on the light. The only light was the pale moonlight filtering through the window over the sink. And I saw what I'd done. Every can of food I owned. I'd taken every single one out of the pantry. Tuna, corn, beans, soup, all of it. And I'd stacked them, not just in a pile. I'd built a perfect, symmetrical pyramid on the countertop. It was flawless. I have no memory of doing this, none. The last thing I remember is reading in bed and turning off the light. And the scariest part, the part that's really messing with my head, is that my first reaction wasn't fear. It was satisfaction. I looked at that pyramid of cans in the dark and some quiet, calm part of my brain just went, there. That's better. The panic didn't hit until I was back in bed, shivering. Am I sleepwalking? I've never sleepwalked in my life. But maybe stress can trigger it. A new environment. I kept trying to find a logical reason. I had to. Because the alternative was just not possible. But it kept happening. It's still happening. I'm not just sleepwalking anymore. I find myself doing things during the day. I'll be in the middle of something, and I'll just zone out. I'll come to, and I'll find I've spent the last hour organizing the books on my shelves. Not by author, not by title. By the exact shade of their color, from lightest to darkest. I found myself on my hands and knees in the bathroom, scrubbing the grout between the tiles with a toothbrush until it was pristine white. I don't remember starting. I just wake up in the middle of it, my back aching, with that same weird, creepy feeling of a job well done. I'm becoming obsessive. That's the only rational explanation. The isolation is getting to me, triggering some latent OCD I never knew I had. My whole day is consumed by it now. Everything has to be perfect, symmetrical. If a coaster is off-center on the coffee table, it's not just annoying, it feels wrong. Physically wrong. I get this knot in my stomach, this rising anxiety that doesn't go away until I fix it. The problem is, it's working. The burnout, the anxiety, the reason I came here in the first place. It's gone. It's been replaced by this obsession with order. It's like my brain has traded one illness for another. And the new one is so much quieter, so much calmer. I tried to fight it. I swear I did. 3 days ago, I decided, fuck this. I'm not a slave to this. I deliberately messed up the living room. I left a coffee cup on the floor. I tossed a book onto the sofa instead of putting it back on the shelf. I tried to just live in it. To be a normal, messy human being, I thought I was going to die. It started with a headache, a dull throb behind my eyes. Then a noise started. A low, deep hum. So low it was more of a feeling than a sound. It was like the house was vibrating. It made my teeth ache. I lay on my bed for hours, curled up in a ball, sweating. The pressure in my head building and building. I felt like my skull was going to crack open. I couldn't take it. Around dawn, I gave up. I got up, my head pounding, and I cleaned the living room. I put the cup in the sink. I put the book back on the shelf in its correct color-coded spot. I straightened the rug. The second I finished, the instant the room was back in perfect order, it stopped. The headache vanished. The humming cut out. Just silence. And that wave of calm washed over me again. It's not just in my head, it can't be. OCD doesn't give you a physical, vibrating hum in your house. It doesn't stop the second you align your books. This is something else. This house, this place, it's not just a building, it's a system. And it has rules, and I'm learning that breaking them has consequences. And then tonight happened, the thing that made me write this. I was in the bathroom, washing my face. I looked up at my reflection in the mirror, and I saw my hand. My right hand. It started to lift. I didn't tell it to, I tried to stop it. I swear to God, I focused all my will on telling my arm to stay down. But it was like it wasn't mine anymore. It was like watching someone else's arm attached to my shoulder. It moved slowly, deliberately. I watched, frozen in horror, as my own index finger touched my forehead, and it started to draw. An invisible pattern on my own skin, a spiral with straight lines coming off it like a stylized sun. I could feel the light pressure of my own nail. I was staring at my own eyes in the mirror, wide with terror, and I couldn't do a single thing to stop it. I was a prisoner in my own body. It probably lasted 10 seconds. It felt like an hour. Then it stopped. My arm dropped to my side. I had control again. I shakily raised my other hand to my forehead. There was nothing there, no mark, no scratch. But I know what happened. I saw it. I felt it. It's not just about the things in the house anymore. It's not about arranging books or cans. It started arranging me. I should leave. I know that. A sane person would be packing a bag right now and driving until the sun came up. But I can't. The thought of leaving this house, of leaving anything out of place, it fills me with a kind of dread that's worse than the fear. The thought of the headache, of the humming. And there's something else. The real reason I'm still here. Since this started, since I've been following these rituals, I've been productive. I'm an architect. I design things. I hadn't been able to draw a straight line for 6 months. My creativity was gone, burned out. The other night, after one of the arranging episodes, I sat down at my drafting table. And I started to draw. It just flowed out of me. The lines were perfect. The concepts were clear, brilliant. In a few hours, I designed a structure more elegant and complex than anything I'd managed in my entire career. It was effortless. I wasn't even thinking. I was just the hand holding the pencil. I looked at the finished drawing, and I felt that same familiar feeling, that deep, profound satisfaction, the feeling of perfect order. I think I understand now. This house isn't haunting me. It doesn't want to hurt me, it's fixing me. It's taking all the messy, chaotic, human parts of me, the anxiety, the depression, the unpredictable spark of creativity, and it's cleaning them up. It's sanding them down. It's putting them in order. It's emptying me of the chaos and filling me with purpose, with structure. And that's the part that terrifies me more than anything else. A part of me wants to let it. A part of me is so tired of the mess. It was the summer of 1998, and I was 16, itching for a bit of independence. My family had this old plot of land up in northern Michigan, about an hour and a half north of Traverse City. Nothing fancy, just a clearing in the woods with a fire pit and room for a tent. We'd been going there since I was a kid, mostly for quick weekends of fishing or just escaping the heat of the city. My parents figured I was old enough to handle a solo overnight, so they dropped me off with the family dog, Max, and a cooler full of sandwiches and sodas. "Call if anything feels off," my dad said, handing me the truck keys. I nodded like it was no big deal, but inside I was thrilled. Just me and Max, under the stars, no rules. Max was a beast of a dog, a chow chow crossed with a black lab, all muscle and thick fur, pushing 90 pounds easy. He had that chow's curled tail and fluffy ruff around his neck, but the lab side made him loyal to a fault, never aggressive unless provoked. He'd sooner roll over for belly rubs than bark at a squirrel. He was my shadow on the drive up, head out the window, tongue lolling in the breeze as we wound along those narrow county roads lined with birch trees and ferns. The property was remote, the kind of place where the nearest neighbor was a mile away through dense woods. No cell service, no lights after dark, just the hum of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. I arrived in the late afternoon, the sun filtering through the canopy in golden shafts. Set up the tent quick. A beat-up two-person dome my brother had outgrown, stakes hammered into the soft earth. Built a small fire, roasted some hot dogs, and tossed Max a bone from the cooler. He gnawed on it contentedly while I leaned back against a log, flipping through a dog-eared copy of Hatchet. I'd read it a dozen times, but out here it felt relevant. The evening cooled off fast, the sky turning that deep indigo before full dark. Stars popped out one by one, brighter than anything in the suburbs. Max curled up by the fire, and I zipped myself into the tent around 10 p.m., feeling pretty pleased with my rugged adventure. Sleep came easy that first night. The tent was stuffy with the day's warmth still trapped inside, but the rustle of leaves and Max's steady breathing lulled me under. I woke once around 2 a.m. to him shifting outside, probably chasing a raccoon in his dreams, but he settled quick and I drifted off again. Morning was crisp, dew on the grass, birds chattering like they owned the place. I spent the day exploring, hiked a faint trail to a creek about a half-mile in, where the water ran clear over smooth stones. Max splashed around, shaking off sprays that soaked my jeans. We ate peanut butter on crackers for lunch, and I even tried my hand at whittling a stick with my pocket knife, mostly just hacking it to splinters. By afternoon, clouds had rolled in from the lake, gray and heavy, promising rain. I gathered extra firewood, just in case, and checked the tent's seams for leaks. Max stuck close, his ears perking at every snap of a twig, but it was all normal woods noise. As dusk fell, the air turned thick with humidity. I got the fire going again, sparks rising into the dimming sky. Supper was cold cuts and an apple. Nothing gourmet, but it hit the spot. Max paced the edge of the clearing once or twice, sniffing the underbrush, but he came back when I called, flopping down with a sigh. The rain held off, but thunder grumbled distantly, like a stomachache echoing over the hills. I turned in early this time, around 9:30, figuring I'd beat any downpour. Zipped the flap tight, double-checked the flashlight in my sleeping bag pocket. Max nosed his way in after me. He didn't love tents, but he wouldn't stay out alone. He wedged himself at the foot of my bag, a warm lump against my feet. The woods went quiet outside, save for the wind whispering through the pines. I lay there listening to it, my mind wandering to school starting soon, friends I hadn't seen all summer. Sleep tugged at me slow, and I let it take me. Sometime later couldn't have been more than a couple hours. I jolted awake. No dream, no noise at first, just that disoriented haze of middle-of-the-night grogginess. The tent was pitch black, the air cooler now, carrying a faint dampness from the woods. My heart was thumping a little too hard. Like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. Then I heard it. Max. He was standing in the middle of the tent, right between me and the flap, his bulk blocking the faint outline of moonlight seeping through the nylon. No tail wag, no whine, just rigid stillness. And that growl. It started low, so deep it vibrated through the floor, barely audible, like the rumble of a distant truck on gravel. His teeth were bared. I could see the white glint in the dark, and his hackles were up along his back, fur standing like a ridge. I froze, breath shallow, eyes wide but seeing nothing. Max didn't move at first, just held that pose, his head turning slow, deliberate, like he was scanning the shadows. That's when I noticed he was tracking something, circling inch by inch, nose twitching, ears locked forward. Whatever it was outside. I strained to listen, and there it was. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate crunches in the leaves, circling the tent. Not human, or at least not clumsy human, too quiet, too rhythmic, like something padding on 4 legs, testing the ground. Then the breathing, a heavy snort. In and out, close enough that it felt like it was right against the fabric. Not a deer's huff, not a coyote's yip, thicker, more deliberate, like an animal weighing its options. My pulse hammered in my ears, but I didn't dare move. The tent felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Max completed his slow turn, pausing at each side as if pinpointing the sound, his growl never breaking, just that steady subsonic warning. When he faced the entrance flap again, the footsteps stopped. Silence stretched, broken only by my own ragged inhales, which I tried to muffle against my sleeve. The snorting picked up once, twice close, maybe sniffing at the base of the tent, and Max's body tensed, a low quiver running through him. I fumbled blindly for the flashlight, fingers brushing the zipper of my bag, then closing around the cold metal. But I didn't click it on. Light might make things worse, draw attention. Instead, I lay there, barely breathing, watching Max's silhouette. The air grew heavier, laced with the musky scent of wet earth and something sharper, animal-like, seeping through the mesh. Gradually, the sounds faded. The footsteps retreated, crunching softly into the brush, the breathing dissolving into the night chorus of insects. Max held his ground a while longer, ears swiveling before his shoulders eased. The growl tapered to a huff, and he turned, padding over to lie beside me. His side pressed warm against my sleeping bag, but his eyes stayed fixed on the flap, unblinking in the dark. I didn't sleep after that, neither did he. We just waited, staring at that thin nylon barrier, the world outside a black void of possibilities. Every rustle in the leaves made my stomach twist. Wind? Another animal? Or it coming back? The hours crawled by, marked only by the slow shift of moonlight across the tent floor. Max's breathing steadied, but he never fully relaxed, his head lifting at the slightest noise. Dawn broke gray and misty, the first bird song piercing the quiet around 6 a.m. Light filtered in, turning the tent from cave to cocoon. Max finally stood, stretched, and nosed at the flap like it was any other morning. I unzipped it fast, heart still racing, and stepped out into the chill. The clearing looked unchanged, dewdrops on the ferns, fire pit cold and ashen. No tracks I could see right away, just the usual scatter of prints from smaller critters. But as I scanned the tree line, my eyes caught indentations in the soft dirt near the tent's side. Paw prints, large ones, clawed and splayed, deeper than a dog's. Bear, probably a black bear, common enough up there, drawn by the food smells or just wandering. Michigan had plenty of them, bold but usually shy unless cornered or hungry. I didn't stick around to confirm. Packed the tent in record time, stakes yanked, poles collapsed, cooler shoved into the truck bed. Max hopped in without a fuss, glancing back at the woods once before settling. The drive home was quiet, the radio off, my mind replaying the night in loops. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was up, and the adrenaline had ebbed to a dull ache. Told my parents it was a great trip, no big deal. But I never went back alone. Max got extra treats that week, and for years after, I'd wake at night sometimes, listening for that growl. I park the pickup beside the logging spur, kill the engine, and let the quiet settle in around me. The sudden lack of noise feels almost physical, like a blanket dropped over my shoulders. The scheme is simple. One night, under the stars, by myself on the ridge to remind myself that I still know how to be quiet, how to be still. No buzzing phone in my pocket, no rifle across my back, just the tarp, the sleeping bag, and the tiny camp stove I lugged as a boy. The sun has already fallen behind the far hill, painting the sky a thin, bruised blue already in its final moments. I comfort myself the darkness will be welcoming once the stars have fire burned into. That's what I tell myself at least. The first hour, I go on autopilot. I collect a handful of dead birch sticks, shave off a few curls of fatwood with the pocket knife I've had for decades, and coax a flame the size of a teacup. The fire is so small, I have to stoop down near, knees nearly in the embers, just to feel its heat. It's enough to drive the mosquitoes off, enough to give me something to look at besides the black wall of spruce moving in on all sides. Every now and then a branch cracks as loud as a cap gun, and I startle before I can stop it. I laugh it off, my head shaking 32 and still worried about pine sap. The laugh's not as natural as I'd have it be. The coffee water does, at last, steam, and I fill my dented enamel cup, wrap both hands around the heat, and stay still. I listen. Wind whisks over the treetops in a long, interminable sigh. It's the kind of sound that doesn't really stop, but sort of ebbs and swells like the tide. Some distance away, something knocks wood on wood 3 slow thuds. I tell myself it's just a branch settling down, an act of nature. I sip, I count my heartbeat, I take another sip. The beat is comforting, like a simple routine I can control. And then at last I get into the sleeping bag. Boots, shoulder to shoulder by the tent door like 2 cold sentinels keeping watch. The fire has burned down to embers, smoking softly under their own pale ash, a dull orange beat fighting not to die. Stars cover the sky now, hard, cold, unforgiving. I am proud for a moment, smug even. No city light, no engines, no screens. Me alone, the world spinning, and the silence I sought. I allow myself to float, and I count satellites as they inch across the dark. I wake up because the woods are amiss. No wind, no crickets, no night birds. It's the silence that drags me up out of bed, not any sound. My ears are filled with cotton. The absence presses in until I can't stand it. Then, somewhere down by the creek, a stick snaps clean and deliberate, like a bone popped into place. My eyes are wide in the dark. I am not breathing, waiting for what comes next. Nothing. I talk quietly to myself. Deer. Just a deer. But the air is listed to one side, as though the whole woods has been shoved a few degrees out of square. I sit up, slowly unzipping the bag, boots wrapped around one fist. My pulse is so strong it is outside me, a drum being beaten by some other person. I glance out towards the line of trees, and nothing but white trunks stand in the black. Then, close one, at most 20 yards, a shuffling, cloth on bark. Not hooves, not paws, cloth. Denim, maybe canvas. I stand stock still. All of Hermit's stories about childhood and meth cookers come back at once, banging in my head. I look over to the fire pit where I place the hatchet blade, catching dim red light, glinting like bait. I slip feet into the boots, lace halfway, and push myself up. the sleeping bag crumpled over my shoulders like some hapless cape. The coals pigment me in pinkish red. Beyond that, everything is ink. I stand frozen, attempting to hear for footsteps, but the silence has grown thick again. My head spins into hyperdrive. I envision the truck keys in my jeans, the serpentine spur road that curves down to the county gravel, the 30-minute stagger through darkness if I tried to do it blindly. Every thought ends in a brick wall. Then I smell it. Cigarette smoke, one drag. Honey sweet and stale, curling in from the left. My stomach rolls over on itself. I don't smoke. No one near me is within 40 miles of this ridge. I peer to the left, my eyes big, but the dark stays firm. The smell lingers anyway, sour and real as rust. My legs go hollow. I say, "Hey?" before I can stop myself. The word collapses flat, swallowed up by the trees. No answer. I edge closer to the hatchet, crouch low, fingers on the cold metal of the handle. The steel is heavy, reassuring in a manner I hadn't expected. I stand up, balance it, take one cautious step closer to the truck. The spur of gravel is 30 feet away, 30 feet of naked ground that feels like a mile. I picture a figure just at the outer edge of the fire glow, watching, waiting. That's when I hear it. Breathing. Low, through the nose, controlled. It isn't mine. It's on the right, 10 feet behind a spruce as wide around as my shoulders. My heart thumps. I turn, hatchet raised, eyes sweeping the black. Nothing moves. I count to 3 in my head, back away from the road. The breathing keeps pace behind me, changing, keeping step. Whomever it is, they're not concealing themselves. They're letting me know that they're present. I snap. No foreknowledge, no plan, raw instinct. Legs pump, tearing across the earth jagged with needles. Roots snag my boots, ankles wrench. But I keep my feet, fueled by terror. Behind me, a laugh. Soft and almost polite. Not entertained, approving. As if I've passed a test that I never wanted to pass. I don't look back. I hit the spur road, rocks scattering, and fight with my keys. My fingers are clumsy, wet. The metal handle of the door is salvation. I yank, slip in, bang, lock. The cab closes over me, the overhead light going out. For an instant, I think I'm safe. My gasping fills the air, mixing with the stale smell of stale coffee. Then, it appears. A shape materializes at the windshield, no head, only a silhouette blacker than the sky that's behind it. A hand extends, fingertips against the glass. 4 circles of condensation materialize against the cold. My breath catches. I turn the key. The starter moans, coughs, fails to start. The second try labors on forever. At last, the engine coughs to life, just as the hand withdraws, vanishes back into the darkness. I floor it, tires scattering gravel, fishtailing down the spur. The rearview mirror flashes with a glint, maybe the hatchet I lost, maybe something else catching starlight. Then it's gone. The road flattens onto county gravel, and I keep the speedometer pegged until first farmhouse lights appear, plain and yellow, 20 miles on. I never saw a face, no monster, no ghost. Just another guy, out in the dark, who couldn't find anything to say. That's the weight that presses like a boulder in my chest. The choice he made in silence. To let me know he could extend his hand and touch the glass. The deep breath he drew through his nostrils while I was standing there in my bare feet, gripping an axe I didn't even know how to hold.